Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining Women, Wardrobe, and Wine, our Wine Down portion of our two-part event for our 7th annual WWW signature event. Thanks for joining us. My name is Melanie Butler. I'm the CEO of Dress for Success Cleveland that has been in the community for over 23 years. And has impacted over 23,000 women. Empowering women, we're about lifting women's confidence. We're about gaining the tools that women need to succeed in not only in their careers, but in life. So our signature event often celebrates women that are doing just that. And we show the complexity of what it takes and the balance it takes to do that. So we are here tonight and we have some very special honorees, and we have 2 moderators with us, Karina Conley and Arlonda Stevens, both board members of Dress for Success Cleveland. So we encourage you to put any questions that you have for our panelists in the chat. We will try to work those in during our session tonight. But we are going to, the video will play again. There was much information there about our panelists and maybe provides information to ask some fun questions. But I am going to turn this over to Karina and Arlonda to host this evening. Thank you again for attending. Karina?
Hi, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well. Thank you all. And thank you in particular to our panelists here tonight. Thank you, Melanie, as well, for kicking things off. I would be completely remiss to try and introduce our panelists in terms of their backgrounds and experience and all the amazing things that they've done. So what I want to do to start it off, I always prefer some personal introductions too, is I'm going to turn it over to them individually. We're going to start with Jade. Kind of tell us your position, where you're from, what you do, and how you ended up getting here to Cleveland.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much, Karina, and thanks to Dress for Success for inviting us here tonight. I'm Jade Jarvis. I'm a reporter at Channel 5. I started here in April 2019. Prior to that, I was in Northeastern Pennsylvania for just over 2 years in Scranton, Wilkes-Barre area, for everyone who's a fan of The Office. That's where the show is set, in Scranton. Before that, I was a web producer at station in Philadelphia, and I'm from Philadelphia. I'm from that area, went to Temple University, and that's where I got my start in the news business.
Thanks, Jade. Kelly, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Hi, I'm Kelly Hayner, and I'm an executive producer at News 5. I work with the noon, 4 and 5 shows at the station. I have been here for almost 11 years. Before that, I worked in Boston And before that, I actually worked at my hometown station in Pittsburgh. I grew up in a tiny town of about 4,000 people, a little bit north of Pittsburgh, before going to Penn State, where I majored in history and journalism. I live here now in Westlake. This was a 2-year stop and we fell in love with Cleveland. So we've been here a lot longer than we expected. And part of that is because we have 2 little boys, a 3-year-old and an 8-year-old, who absolutely love all of the amazing things that Cleveland and the lake and our incredible cultural district have to offer.
And especially the Cleveland Browns, I'm sure too, Kelly.
Oh, yes. That's the only thing my son's been told. He's not allowed to come home if he wants to.
Thanks. Hey, Tara, why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself?
Hi, everyone. My name is Tara Gardner. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yep.
I am born and raised in Youngstown, Ohio, so right down the road. So being in Cleveland is very much like home for me. I started in the news business as an associate producer writer with Kelly at a TV station in Pittsburgh where I went to college, and then went to Youngstown and was a producer there for about 3.5 years before I first got the opportunity to come here to Channel 5 in Cleveland. I produced the 11 o'clock news, then decided to venture west a couple thousand miles and went to Salt Lake City to be an executive producer for a couple years. And then I came back home to Channel 5 in Cleveland. I've been here for 10 years now back.
Well, we're happy to have you back.
Thank
And
you.
last but not least, Tracy, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi guys, can you hear me?
Yes.
They asked us to take the video off, so I did. Now I just have to figure it out. Okay, wait, I think I have it. Okay, there we go. Hi everybody, my name is Tracy Carlos. I'm the weekend anchor at Channel 5 and I have been here 21 years. I came to Cleveland by way of Clarksburg, West Virginia, Syracuse, New York, Buffalo, New York, and then Cleveland. I am originally, like Jade and Kelly, from Pennsylvania. I am from outside of Pittsburgh, a blue collar town, a steel mill town that I still can't say it without my Pittsburgh accent after 21 years of being here. I am married. I have a 14-year-old daughter. We have 2 dogs. I have an undergraduate and graduate degrees from Duquesne University in Pittsburgh. And like Kelly said, I came for the interview in Cleveland and loved it and never left.
Well, we're obviously very glad to have you as well. And I also didn't know that you worked in Clarksburg, West Virginia. I'm a WVU law grad, so a big fan of anyone that has a connection with that state.
Love West Virginia.
I know, it's great. It's almost as good as Cleveland.
Almost.
All right, I'm going to kick things off. So the title of our program every year and our annual event is the Women Wardrobe and Wine event. And that's obviously intentional. Those things all go together fairly well. What do each of you guys do? And anyone can speak up first. Maybe we'll start in the same order as we did. What do you do, or what do you do to wind down, for lack of a better word, wind down, and how do you manage your life to get to that point?
So I'll take it first then. I guess it depends on each day, what you've done at work that day and what you need to do when you get home in order to wind down. But I would say on a typical day for me, I'm not a chef. I don't really like to cook, but I do find that having a great meal and I don't really drink wine, but one of my favorite drinks or something like that, and having that and coming home helps me wind down from the day. And it depends. Maybe I'll watch something that I really wanted to watch on TV, what someone, recommended to me, or, I might curl up on the couch with a book. So it really depends. With this job, sometimes you can go out to a story and it's very chaotic. If you're out on breaking news, and you might need a more quiet night at home, or, you go out and you do a, general assignment kind of story. Maybe has something to do with schools or something like that. And then you come home and you're like, okay, well, maybe I can do something that's a little bit more lively. So it really depends. on the day, but I'm a homebody, so usually something at home.
How about you, Kelly? With two little ones at home, I'm sure it's whining or winding down can be interesting.
It is, and I'm sorry, my phone is ringing. I'm at home today, and I don't know how to stop that. Okay, sorry about that. And I think I just
No
answered
problem.
it. Okay, yeah. So I actually thought it was interesting during the pandemic. I think one of the things I struggled with the most was my wind down time is usually in the car because, like you said, you get home. Our job, you are going at 1,000 miles an hour for 9 hours a day, and when you get home and you have two little ones, you're going at 1,000 miles an hour until bedtime. And so for me, that wind down time has always been the car. And I really missed that when we were in the pandemic. And I literally stood up from my chair and walked 2 feet and sat down at the kitchen table every night. So for me, it's that time in the car. If it was a really bad day, probably listening to the radio or screaming the songs at the top of my lungs. Sometimes it's listening to HLN does their like true crime blocks in the evenings, and I'll listen to that just to realize that things could be a lot worse in life depending on how the day went. And other times it's calling my mom or reconnecting with a college friend just to have a little bit of a voice with someone, a time to connect with somebody that hasn't been dealing with what we've been dealing with all day, so that when I get home, I can be rejuvenated and put the smile on my face for the boys, because there are some days and Jade and Tracy, because they're out there and they're talking to the people. I know it's a lot harder, but when we're covering, little kids dying and, the horrible stories that we have here in Cleveland, sometimes you need that break before you can put that smile on your face before you see your family.
Absolutely. Tara, Kelly mentioned before pandemic and after pandemic. Did you have similar things before and after the pandemic, or did that shift for you and how you wind or wind down?
So not only did the pandemic start last year, I also got married last year. And so
congratulations.
Thank you. And I moved from one side of the city to another. And so between us being told, we should stay at home and to be safe and not go out, and being so far away from the family and friends that I had had on the other side of town, it completely changed. There was more of a going out and meeting up with friends after work and, just talking about our days and talking about our lives, to going home and spending time with my husband and my dog and my cat, and very different. But at the same time, the pandemic happened to hit at a time where I think that would have happened anyway for me. So it was very good to have somebody to come home to. I did think about that. If I had still been living by myself during the pandemic, it might have been harder. So it was very good to have somebody to come home to. But to have that time with him, what I actually do is try to get stuff done in the morning, because he goes to work 2 hours before I do and comes home 3 hours before I do. So I don't want to have to come home and have dishes and laundry and things like that to do. So I try to get some of those chores done in the morning. And then that frees up my time to just relax with him. And we listen to music, watch TV, make dinner, just spend time together.
And that's a really good point too. And before we turn it over to you, Tracy, some people have their wind down time and wine time, maybe wine time at different times, particularly you, Tracy, if you're a weekend anchor. I assume that your downtime is a little bit different than normal people. How do you find time to relax and relate and simmer down a little bit?
Well, when I saw this question was going to be asked, I really do a bad job at it. As you can see right now, I am in my car, and I have a 14-year-old. So my time, I'm off Thursday and Friday. Today is an off day. And I spend a lot of time in my car taking her from place to place and then waiting. So I guess this is it. I guess this is how I wind down. I sit in my car and I have some quiet. Before the pandemic, I was doing yoga once a week, and I really liked it. I wasn't sure I was going to be a fan. I loved it. The pandemic came and I stopped. So I do want to get back eventually, but I only have 4 more years until my daughter goes off to college. So I want to try to spend as much time with her as possible. So I guess the other thing, and Kelly knows this too, is, my thing is vacation. And we travel a lot. We're trying to take her to all 50 states before she heads to college. So that's really my wind down time when I'm with them. When I'm planning a vacation, it makes me, gives me some happiness and no stress. So
That's a great tip. And this open up the floor to anyone here. It's very hard, for everyone, including myself, to find the time. You mentioned yoga before the pandemic, but with a 14-year-old, it's really hard. 3 and 8-year-old, even when you're at a different spot in your career. What I love about this panel is everybody has different perspectives of where they're at in their life. How do you guys find the time to prioritize something like nutrition, fitness, things that you hear in the media that you're talking about all the time to people? How do you find the time to do it yourself?
Oh, go ahead, Jade.
I was just going to say it's like extremely difficult. So it's something that I have to force myself to remember and just like kind of like make it a part of my day, or else it won't get done. So, during the pandemic, I kind of used the, gyms closing down and, stay home as an excuse to like not work out, because that's just the kind of person that I am. So I forced myself to go and get a gym membership earlier this year. And I, make sure to schedule the classes before work, because if I try to go after work, like I have every excuse in the book, like it was a hard day, like I can't go and I'm tired and I just want to cook dinner and go to sleep. So if I do it when I wake up and before work, it's done. And, I can just get on with the rest of the day. And same thing with nutrition. Like I am notorious for like running out of the house with no lunch. And just like, I'm just on the go all day. So I'm just like, whatever, I'll grab something when I'm out. And it's probably not the best thing to grab like fast food and things like that. So I have to force myself, make your lunch at home before you even get started with anything for the rest of your day. So when you do have to run out on breaking news, you can grab it because it's right in your fridge in the lunchbox. So for me, it's like I have to be very intentional about making those kinds of decisions, or else it goes by the wayside and it's not great.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm going to turn over the fun questions a little bit. The fun downtime. I'm going to turn the floor over to Orlando. She's got a couple questions for you guys, and then I'll be back to ask some more.
Hello, everyone, and a special welcome to all of our honorees. So glad that you could join us today as we have our wind down conversation. We talked a little bit about well-being and self-care, right? And how we manage our time and how we wind down. Another aspect of self-care is financial self-care, right? And making sure that we have well-being in our finances. So I want to ask Tara, what is the best financial advice you've ever received?
The one thing I am so glad I learned early on is that a credit card is not free money. From the very beginning, I would use my credit card and pay it off every month. And even every 2 weeks, every time I get that paycheck, the thought of paying the interest that can accumulate on that makes me very anxious. So so I know a lot of people aren't given that advice at the beginning. They're given these credit cards at a young age and are told you can go buy all this new stuff and you just pay it off later, not realizing how hard it is to pay those off. So I am very glad that I learned that early on.
Great, and that is excellent advice. Now, on the flip side of that, what have you learned over the years in managing your finances that no one didn't tell you and you wish they would have?
So I would say that while I was always told that I should save money, I I don't think I knew at times how hard it would be. And I had this thought in my head that when I'm saving, I need to be saving like a huge amount of money every time I throw it in the savings account. And I wish that and I know it now, and I have it cycling every week, you know, pulling so much money, even just a little bit out of my checking and throwing in a savings account. And I wish I would have realized that just doing a little, even just a little bit at a time, can reap huge benefits later on, whether it's to help put money down on a new car or to be there when you need it.
Yeah, that's good advice, right? Start saving early, and it's something that we definitely can start imparting to our children and those younger ones, right? Particularly in school, to start saving. And it's good that they're starting to have financial literacy, you know, in the schools to help to get that message out, because it really is beneficial. Well, I know all of you had to, at some point in your life, try and figure out and make ends meet. And so wanted to know, what did you have to do from a financial perspective, or if there were any jobs, or, you know, whatever it is you had to do to make ends meet before you got to where you are today. So I want to start with Tracy, and I would like for all of you to kind of weigh in on this, because I think this is very good information for those listening in to, you know that you don't always arrive on day one.
So my very first job, as I said, was in Clarksburg, West Virginia, where I did everything. I produced, I ran the teleprompter, I anchored the newscast, I reported, I shot my video, and we did everything. And for all of that work, I was paid $9,500 a year. So it was very challenging. Luckily, the cost of living in Clarksburg was not, you know, the cost of living that we have in Cleveland. And my parents were not wealthy. They were, you know, my dad was a police officer. My mother worked in a hospital. So what I would do is every 2 weeks, I would go home. My dad would fill my car with gas. My mother would go grocery shopping and buy me food and dog food, because I had a dog. And my dad would give me $20. And that's what I had to work with, besides my paycheck, which basically took my rent and my utilities and everything else that I needed. So I was fortunate that my parents were there. So I didn't have to work another job while I was coming up the ladder, because in that market, you work 12 hours a day, every day, if not 6 days a week. So there really was no time, and you just learn to really do without, you know, I mean, I had so much money to spend. That was my budget. And I worried about feeding me and the dog. And there were some times when the dog food was gone, we'd be eating Kraft macaroni and cheese together.
Thank you for that, Tracy. Kelly?
I got very lucky in that my first job was in my hometown. I think Jade and Tara and Tracy can attest that doesn't happen very often. So I ended up having to live at home until I was 27. My first producing job paid me $6 an hour, and it was part-time, and it was shift work, and you were expected to be there when they wanted you, which meant that you couldn't get a second job, because if you did, you had to choose between which job you wanted to go to. The one in your career or the other one that was going to help you. So luckily for me, my mother and stepfather didn't kick me out and let me stay there, but I had to drive 45 minutes to work every single day, and I worked overnights. So they got to know me really well at the subway on the way home, because I would stop so I wouldn't fall asleep. When I did finally move into my apartment, I still wasn't making a lot of money. TV does not pay all that great in your first couple of jobs. And so, like Tracy, money would get tight, but it wasn't Kraft macaroni and cheese for me. It was a head of lettuce, some tortillas, and a bag of cheese, and I could make meals out of that for a week if I had to.
Good. Tara, how about you?
More than anything, it was sharing those apartments with people. I did not learn really what it was like to live by myself for a while, but thankfully my first job was right out of college. So I was roommates with people I had already been roommates with in college. And then when I moved home to Youngstown, I was living with family. And then when I came up to Cleveland, I ended up moving in with for the first time with my oldest friend from kindergarten. So it's just simply realizing that, you've got to save a little bit of that money and you can't overspend. And I remember actually, and this was right before the housing market crash in Youngstown, I was like, all right, I'm ready. I'm going to go buy a house. And I remember being approved for a loan that even I knew if I took that loan and bought a house that I would be eating ramen noodles every day and wouldn't have furniture to fill the house that I just bought. So it was a lot about realizing what I could and couldn't do at the time and what was right.
Yeah, those good old ramen noodles. I ate so many of those in college. I said I would never eat another ramen noodle. So I definitely understand that. How about you, Jade?
So I still love ramen noodles.
Oh no.
I mean, but like, I'm not depending on them as much as I was on my first job. I just eat them because I like them now. But yeah, similar to everyone else, like, yeah, ramen noodles was my, meal. I was working night side at my last job. So like I would get home late and then that would be dinner and you would go to sleep. But yeah, I mean, those first jobs in TV, they don't pay very well. So you are having to be creative with what you're buying, for food. Of course, my part of the job is like to be on camera. So you still have to like figure out what kind of makeup you can afford, learn how to do your own hair, which for me, like there were some interesting situations with that where I like burnt my hair and stuff. So, I mean, there's a lot, but I was able to get a work from home job with my cousin's company when I worked at my first job. So that helped me out a little bit to, start saving, like Tara said, even like $20, per paycheck, because I knew eventually I was going to have to move somewhere else for a new job. And, getting there, I knew it was probably going to be out of state and, moving all my stuff. So I wanted to make sure that I was set up, for the future. So yeah, just making smart choices. Fortunately, I had, family help as well. And yeah, lots of ramen noodles.
I think that the common thing is a little bit of sacrifice, right? And short-term sacrifice for long-term gain. At this point, we're going to shift gears a little bit and dig a little bit deeper into your career paths. And at this point, I'll turn it back over to Karina.
Thanks, Arlonda, and thanks, everyone. Thanks for being so vulnerable and opening up with everyone here on the panel. I know everyone really appreciates it. On the flip side of eating ramen noodles or, stocking your fridge with lettuce, which I did very frequently and there was a lot of salads happening in my household. Was there a time, and if so, explain or tell us a little bit about that you realize, I made it. I think I've made it. I think I'm here where I want to be in my career. I think I'm there. And when was that for you? Jay, do you want to kick us off?
Sure. I don't think I've had that moment yet, though, just because, I mean, I'll be in the business 6 years, I think it is, in December. So I don't think I've had that moment yet. Although when I got this job here, I was like over the moon excited. Just the reputation of the station, seeing the work that they did, and just being able to be a part of the team. Like I was like, this is like big time. So I did have part of that moment, but I think it's too early for me to say like I've definitely made it. I think I need to probably make a lot more mistakes before I get there and have a lot more experiences. But so yeah, I mean, getting this job, I would say so far is that moment of like, okay, we're moving in the right direction here.
Kelly, how about you?
In 2015, I was producing the 5 o'clock show at Channel 5. I did a lot of different things at Channel 5. And had a job interview for a new producer candidate. And I said, oh, what show are you interviewing for? And she said, oh, I'm interviewing for the 5 p.m. I was like, oh, that's funny because that's my show. And I was like, why are you interviewing for my job? And that's when I found out that the news director had this grand plan for me, that he wanted me to stop producing and start planning the RNC coverage that our station was going to do, because the RNC was coming to Cleveland. And I was totally overwhelmed. Like, I had never done anything like this before. I'd planned my wedding and that was about it. And so I thought he was crazy, but you know, why not? We've been doing this a long time and I was going to try. And I think I will always look back on that experience and how it turned out as one of the best things I've ever done in my career. We ended up having amazing coverage, an amazing team. The RNC coverage that we did, just the team came together and blew me away. And I learned so much about myself in that and what I had to do and what I can do, that, you know, I still have the little piece of confetti in my drawer by my bed from the night. I got to see, I'm a history major. History is my love. And I got to be in the queue for the entire week. And regardless of how you feel about politics, when you get to see somebody stand on the stage and accept the presidential nomination, not many people get to see that. You know, and I think that was the moment that it hit me that, you know, what we do is pretty darn cool.
That's very cool. That's very cool. So I'm sure a lot of you at various times, like myself, had different jobs that led you to where you are now. I started, my very first job was at Dairy Queen. I also worked at the Bay Village City Pool. I was maintenance and then also held the stick for kids to get measured to go on the slides. Did you guys have some other jobs similar to that maybe that helped you get through? I know, Jade, you had mentioned a stay-at-home job or work from home job when you first started in the business. Tara, how about you? Did you have any other what we'll call taxi jobs or jobs that, you know, weaved your way through before you landed to where you are now?
So I started working at my best friend's family pharmacy when as soon as I got a car, I had to get a job, right? And then they were bought out by Rite Aid, and I proceeded to stay with Rite Aid throughout high school and throughout college. And then in my last couple of years of college, I also then worked at the college radio station at Pitt, and then interned and took a fill-in vacation relief job at KDKA radio in Pittsburgh as well. So I was doing all of that to, you know, in my last year of college. And then as soon as I graduated, well, it was a couple weeks before I graduated, I got my first job in TV news. But I think I look back and I was very committed to Rite Aid for reasons I don't really know. And I'm seeing that still in myself today, because I was here at Channel 5 for a couple of years, left and came back, and have been here for 10 years. I find places I love and I stick with it. And so I think that experience actually helped me to be where I am today.
Tracy, how about you? You mentioned the different places that you were and things that you did. I can imagine that growing up or getting to where you are, you maybe had some other things that you did along the way.
I did. When I was in college, I was a waitress, and then I worked at an amusement park at Kennywood, which is an amusement park in Pittsburgh, and I worked at the funnel cake factory. I will never eat another funnel cake again. I made so many funnel cakes that year. So then after that, I went back to waitressing. And I remember somebody, a customer at the restaurant, saying to me, when I was, work summers in college, and he said, what do you want to do? And I said, I want to be a reporter. And he said, well, you don't come from money. Your parents don't have money. You're never going to do that. And that was the determination that I needed to prove him and lots of other people along the way wrong, that you can do something if you set your mind to it and you are tenacious about it and you don't give up. As a matter of fact, I have something sitting on my desk that says, my only talent is I don't quit. So yeah, I mean, those were the two main jobs. My first job in this business was DJ in Connellsville, Pennsylvania. I was up at 5 in the morning on weekends. And then when I went to West Virginia, I did not get a full-time position right away. So I was driving from Pittsburgh every day, getting up at 4, driving and producing the noon show, coming home and finishing my classes for my master's degree at night. And that went on for about 9 months until I got a full-time job.
And that's a drive from Pittsburgh to Clarksburg every day.
It is. Yes.
That is a drive for those of you that don't know. Jade, how about you, other than the work from home job that you did? Anything else that you've done along the way to get you where you're at now?
So I mean, I've had so many just like, you know, retail and waitressing jobs. Like I worked at Dick's Sporting Goods. I worked at Whole Foods, which was great because there was a discount on food. I have worked in a couple different restaurants. And yeah, I've worked in a couple different retail stores like throughout like high school and college. The only other second job that I had, you know, during like while working as a reporter was that work from home job, which was perfect because like Kelly was saying earlier, you know, you've no idea what's going to happen. So it's hard to have a second job where you actually have to physically go in and work when you could be at a breaking news scene until they clear you, you know, maybe 2 hours after your shift was initially supposed to be done. So yeah, so that it's hard to balance, but so I've really just been focusing on this full time. But yeah, over the years, I've had so many.
Kelly, how about you?
So when I was in high school, my sister-in-law was the manager at a sporting goods place. So I worked there and dating myself. The most popular item that we sold were pagers because back then everybody had pagers. There were no cell phones. So I got really good at how to call the company and hook up pagers. And then in college, I worked at a cafe where one of my jobs was to work in the back kitchen and make the food. And part of the food was to make the tuna salad every day. Which to most people wouldn't sound bad, except for I've been a vegetarian since I was 8. So for me to have to sit there and mix like gross, disgusting food that I don't eat was just every day. Oh my goodness, the smell of tuna still takes it back. And then, you know, in the summers for college, I would do things like, I sold candles. You know, mainline marketing was just really kicking off when I was getting out of college. And in college. And so I was one of the first people to discover that you don't make a lot of money on it. And so I spent like 6 months trying to sell candles to people. I think I still have some of them that haunt my husband because they're in a closet. And then I nannied for a couple of summers because they were flexible with me for my internships and everything. Just, hey, when you're free, we'll go to dinner. And, you know, I did things like that just to have some spending money when I'd go back to school.
Lots of diverse things. That's great. Arlanda, I'm going to swing it back to you to round things up.
All righty. Oftentimes we see our news personalities as almost members of our family, right? Because they're in our homes, you know, 2, 3, 4 times a day. And not only do they feel, you know, do you feel like family, but you're definitely a part of the community. And so I want to know, how has your career influenced your community engagement? And I'm going to kick it off with Jade.
That's one of the greatest things about being a reporter is being able to get out into the community, meet different people and make those connections, you know, face to face, especially because, I don't know, I feel like in Cleveland, everyone kind of knows everyone in some kind of way. So there have been so many stories that I've, you know, done with one person, they introduced me to another person, and then so on and so forth. So I've really been, in a short time, because I've only been here just over 2 years, have really managed to make meaningful connections with a lot of people who have invited me to events, you know, whether just as a guest or maybe to MC an event. So yeah, I mean, just by nature of doing my job every day, it really has allowed me to connect with the community so much more than I think that if I had just moved to Cleveland and maybe worked at, you know, maybe in an office somewhere, I probably would not have been as connected because I'm just introverted in general. So this job, you know, kind of forces me to go out of my comfort zone.
That's good. Thank you, Jade. How about you, Tracy? How has your career influenced your community engagement?
Well, I think Jay hit the nail on the head because I'm out reporting 3 days a week. So you meet so many different people. And we're lucky that people want us to do their events, that they, you know, email us or go through Maureen or whoever to ask us to do things. But I like Jade, I'm very quiet and I'm an introvert, hard to believe for the people who know me. But when it comes to speaking in front of big groups, I will decline those every time. I do not like it. My hands get sweaty. I just can't. And people will say, well, you're on TV. Well, it's different. It's very much different. So I tend to do things that are smaller, things like this, things that have to do with kids, those types of things.
Okay. I have another question as a follow-up to that. Has your career limited your community engagement in any way?
I don't think so. You know, people, be it right or wrong, they form an opinion of us from being on TV. So it's, you know, they either love you or they don't like the lipstick you're wearing. So yeah, I don't think so. I mean, all of us get asked pretty regularly to do things in the community. And like I said, I've been here 21 years, so I tend to do a lot in different aspects of community service.
How about you, Jade? Has your career limited any of your community engagement in any way?
I would agree with Tracy. I don't think it has. Yeah, I mean, I don't think it had, like, I don't even have an example to give, but yeah, I don't think it has. And I think whenever I go out and I do see someone who's like a News 5 viewer, they're like just so, either they want to come up to you and talk to you about a story you did, or, you know, just talk to you because like you said, you know, we do become almost part of the family, or at least part of the community. So they're excited when they see you. So I've never run into a situation where, you know, my job has not, you know, has come in as an obstacle in me trying to engage with someone in the community.
That's good. Cleveland is a pretty friendly place.
Yeah.
And to that about Cleveland, what is it about Cleveland that you like? I know a couple of you have been in and around Cleveland or close to Cleveland, but what is it that you like that keeps you here and not pursuing opportunities in other markets that may be larger or maybe more beneficial to your career advancement? So I will start with you, Kelly.
Well, part of what keeps me here is the station and the work that we're doing. You know, while we are, Cleveland is considered market 19, so we're considered the 19th largest TV market in the country. I would put us up against ones and twos every single day. You know, the work that we're doing, the impact we're having on the community, you can't really beat it. But also the city, you know, when we moved here, we didn't realize how accessible Cleveland was going to be. You know, we drive downtown every weekend. Our sons are 8 and 3, and to them going to Cleveland is just like going to the downtown of Westlake, which there really isn't a downtown, but it's just like going to downtown Westlake. You know, we can go to the Science Center, the Children's Museum. It's even not all that terrible to get over to the Art Museum and the Botanical Gardens. And there's just so much that this city offers that is accessible and affordable and family friendly. You know, whenever somebody interviews for a job here, I always make it a point to talk about the metro parks and the lake, because I don't think people realize, you know, what we have until you get here and you see it. And every once in a while we'll say, oh, is it time to move back home to Pittsburgh? Nope. You know what? We're close enough. We can still hit the turnpike and get home, but Cleveland still offers us something that the other cities we've lived in hasn't.
Thank you. How about you, Jay? What is it you like about Cleveland?
I knew nothing about Cleveland before I moved here. So besides coming here to look for apartments and to come for the interview, I was completely coming in just completely fresh, knew nothing really about it. So like we said earlier, the people are just so nice and welcoming. And I like get similar vibes to, I'm from Philadelphia. So it just has like kind of like, you know, Philly's a city of brotherly love, and, you know, people there are like laid back, and, you know, you'll have people who like when they walk by you on the street, they will say hi. So I feel like here in Cleveland, it's a similar vibe. I love just everything nature-wise that Cleveland offers. It's a city, but then you have this incredible resource of the lake, and then the metro parks, the Cuyahoga Valley National Park. And then, I mean, the food scene is amazing. So for someone like me who's single and like always doesn't want to cook, there's just like so many options just to get out and experience different cultures, different cuisine. So it just like, it has like, it feels like a, you know, a big city in a small town wrapped up into one.
Good. Thank you. How about you, Tracy?
I would have to say it's the people. Browns fans do not want to hear this, but Pittsburgh is very similar to Cleveland, as is Buffalo. And I left Buffalo. My dad had needed heart surgery. And at that point, I realized my parents were, you know, not going to be around forever. And I wanted to be closer to home. I thought we would be in Cleveland 5 years. Here we are. And we have no intention of moving. It's the people, it's the feeling, it's home.
Good. How about you, Tara? What's that you like about Cleveland?
Well, it is home for me since I grew up about an hour away. And I simply like the fact, and Jade mentioned it was a big but small city. I love the fact that it's a city, but I don't feel like I'm rushed or can't get to a place I want to get to, or can't drive to a place that I want to get to. But then also, we have all of these diverse communities surrounding it. I live in Geauga County now, in Chardon, and it is a small town out in the country, and I am there every night, and then I get to come to the city every day. So there's just this diversity all around that's easily accessible, easy to get to, and easy to enjoy.
Okay. All of you had mentioned earlier that you've worked in other markets. What makes the Cleveland market so different outside of what you just mentioned about what you like about Cleveland, but how does working in Cleveland, what's different with working in Cleveland in this market? And what'd you say, Kelly, market 19? I will start with you, Tara.
So I have worked in Pittsburgh, Youngstown, Cleveland, and Salt Lake City. And so 3 of those cities are in the Rust Belt. And I would say, again, like Kelly said, or like Tracy said, that Pittsburgh is a very similar city to Cleveland. I would say all 3 of those markets are very similar, even though Youngstown is very small. We are all very competitive, and we want to do our best, and we strive to get that story and to tell the better story. And so I think all of them are very similar in those philosophies. Salt Lake was slightly more laid back. Not that people didn't want to do their best, but it felt just a little more laid back, a little more chill. And maybe that's the Western desert mountain vibe out there, but those would be the differences for me.
Okay. Jade?
So the previous market that I worked in, I mentioned northeastern Pennsylvania. I mean, it's totally different from Cleveland, just because Cleveland, like I said, it's like a small town wrapped into a big city, but it still is a city. So Scranton, Wilkes-Barre, it's just such a different kind of vibe. It's like very small communities. Fundamentally, I guess we all care about the same things, but even the type of news that we would do out there is different, and the types of stories we would do. I felt like when I was there, I was always chasing down whatever was happening on the scanner, you know, house fires and, you know, things like that, just like news of the day. Here, you know, our audience cares about just like a variety of different things. So it's like, we do prioritize, you know, those situations where we have to cover what's breaking, but we go a lot deeper. We have a segment called In Depth, but, you know, we go deeper into those issues that people are thinking about and tell them in creative ways. So for me, like going from the market that I was in to this one, I just feel like I have so much more time to be able to tell stories that really impact, you know, the people who live here, and, you know, and goes deeper, makes them think maybe about things that they weren't, with our storytelling. So that would be the main differences for me. It's just, you know, the pace and the types of stories we do.
And that's important. I think all of us are interested, not just, you know, like you said, all the bad news and the house fires and the murders, but some of the other feel-good things and other issues that impact our daily lives. Tracy, how does this market differ for you from other places you've worked?
I think in terms of people, you know, I was very fortunate in West Virginia to have, you know, the neighborhood I lived in, I swear they adopted me. They were great people. Buffalo was very similar to Cleveland. Cleveland's very similar to Pittsburgh. Syracuse was a little more cold. You know, they weren't as friendly. When it comes to stories, here I cover a lot of crime. In those other markets I was always a weekend anchor for the most part. And then the other 3 days I reported. So I would cover more of a variety of stories, I guess. I wasn't so much crime, whereas here I am. Not that I mind it because I know how to do it. It's just a little bit different in what I've been doing.
And Kelly, how about you?
You know, I think Tracy and Tara are right. The Pittsburgh and Cleveland comparison, they are very similar cities, and Boston as well. You know, they're all cities centered around water, cities centered around medical, cities centered around education. So it's very interesting to see how 3 cities react to it differently. So a lot of the stories were very similar. You know, we tell the stories about the medical field. We tell the stories about, you know, what's happening with nature, but we also, each city is slightly different. Pittsburgh, that market, very much, Tracy, as you say, you cover crime here. It was very much like Jade's. It was run and gun. We were the breaking news station, and whatever you can do with breaking news. There wasn't a lot of that deep thought going into our stories. Boston was a little bit more of the think about it a little bit, have the longer segments, take the time to tell the story. We were also the state capital, which meant that, you know, we had to cover the governor and we had to cover political issues that you wouldn't necessarily need to cover in a Pittsburgh. You know, and here, I think to Jade's point, we take the time to tell the story. You know, today we just put on a 4-minute piece about the challenges that some people face riding the RTA that you may not realize if you just use it every once in a while or don't use it at all. Those aren't the kinds of stories we would have told in the other markets, because we were much more focused on the day of news. There wasn't, if you weren't in a special unit, if you weren't labeled an investigator, you weren't getting the time to put those stories together. So I think that the news business is evolving, and that's part of the change that we're seeing. But I also think that just the philosophy we have here is a little bit different.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for sharing. Karina, I'm going to turn it back over to you for another couple of questions or so.
Sure. So thank you again all so much for your time. It's so good to hear everyone's different perspectives of coming to the city, enjoying the city. And like I mentioned before, having everyone on the panel be at different places in their careers and different places in their lives. It's actually, frankly, really empowering for me to hear all these stories and to see all of you and all the success that you guys have all obtained over the years and where you're at now. What is the best piece of advice about empowerment that you've received in your career? And Jade, let's start with you.
I think the best piece of advice I have received related to empowerment, self-empowerment, is just to be confident in what you're doing. I think that's something that I've always been more reserved. I've always been like laid back, like content to you know, just not be the star, I guess. But, you know, sometimes you really do have to advocate for yourself. You do have to be loud. You do have to be persistent. And so one of my mentors when I was starting out was like, you have to, you know, get in front of people and explain, you know, whether it's a story pitch or, you know, just something else happening at work, you know, do it in a respectful manner, but make sure you get your point across and be assertive. So that's just something that I always tried to do. Like I said, because just naturally, I'm just like, okay, like we'll go with the flow and, you know, just kind of content to stay back. But, you know, for some of those projects that I'm really passionate about, I'm always like, I'm trying to figure out the best way how to present this so that we can get it done. And, you know, hopefully we can, you know, get this on the air or, you know, whatever it may be.
And that's so important. Kelly, how about you?
You know, and this isn't really advice. It's something that I've learned through the years, and that's you've got to prop up the people around you. You know, you hear so many of the stories about, oh, these two women fought, these two women didn't like each other. But you know what? You got to have the back. You know, prop up the woman next to you, prop up the person next to you, prop up the man next to you, quite frankly. But, you know, work with the people that you work with so that you're all going towards a common goal, because in the end, we all are going towards a common goal. You know, and the more that you can work together, as opposed to looking for the differences, look for the similarities, the more successful you can be with something.
Tara? I don't know if she heard me. She's still there? Tara, any good advice you've gotten over the years?
I think she's having a muting problem.
Oh no, then we'll skip to Tracy.
I think it came from, you know, my parents. Don't give up. If my mother said at one time, she said at 5,000 million, if first you don't succeed, try again, and you don't give up.
Absolutely. Thank you guys all again so much. I know Melanie has a couple of closing remarks, but I personally, and I'm sure Yolanda feels the same way, just appreciate so much you taking the time to chat with us about your experiences, and have this discussion with us in our group tonight.
Karina and Arlanda, thank you so much for moderating tonight, and our women from Channel 5. What a interesting fireside chat that we just had, and some great commentary. I'm actually going to turn this back over to Arlanda to kind of close out the evening. We have a few things we want to share with our audience.
I guess it would help if I come off mute. Before we get to the final, I just have one last question. Since you've all been in Cleveland, you know, we Clevelanders love our sports teams. And so what is your favorite Cleveland sports team? So we don't want to hear any Steelers stuff in there. But what is your favorite Cleveland sports team? Tracy?
I would have to say it really is the Browns, I guess. Not that when they play the Steelers that, you know, whoever wins that game, I win, right? Because I love both teams. But I like football, I guess, the best out of all the sports.
Okay, thank you. Jade?
I'm going to agree with Tracy and say the Browns, just because coming from Philly, we also waited a long time for our Super Bowl glory. So when I saw that, and I mean, the reaction in Philly was just incredible. But the Browns fans just have the same, just like undying love for their team. So I just think that's so incredible. So I'm rooting for the Browns.
Right, 2 for the Browns. Tara?
Well, some of the most exciting and exhilarating shows I've ever produced were the Cavs postgame shows, especially when they won the championship. And I do love the Cavs. It's going to have to be the Indians/Guardians. They were my first professional sporting event that I ever went to. And I was always able to like both the Indians and the Pirates because they're in different leagues. And if both of them ever made it to the World Series, there was going to be more happening in the world than if that was ever able to happen. So.
All right. And how about you, Kelly?
Kara and I have very similar feelings on that. The Indians would be my team, and part of it is the same reason, and it's always fun to see the Indians and Pirates play. But fun fact about me is when I was in Boston, I was there when Terry Francona won his World Series there, and then he came here, but he's also from my hometown. So I always felt like if I'm rooting for the Indians, even if it's against the Pirates, I'm still rooting for the hometown boy for me. Because, you know, the banners in my town say home of Terry Francona and all that kind of fun stuff. So I just have always felt a connection to him and by extension, the Indians.
And that's good. So we've got 2 Browns and 2 Indians, and it's good to hear that he'll be back next year, Frank Francona, for 2022. So I was glad to hear that. So, all righty. Well, thank you again, as Karina said and Melanie had said, for all of you sharing with us really great information, just to know and hear a little bit more about the people that show up into our homes on a daily basis. We would be remiss if we didn't extend an opportunity to all of those who've been able to join us today. And thank you so much for everyone who has listened in to this Fireside Chat. Hopefully you have gleaned some gems that all of our guests have shared with us. But as Karina first started out, this is our Women Wardrobe and Wine, and this has become a signature event for Dress for Success, and an opportunity for us to raise the necessary funds that we need in order to provide the programming and to provide opportunities such as this to further our vision and our mission, which is to empower women to achieve economic independence by providing a network of support, professional attire, and development tools to help women live and thrive in their work and life. And so we have a goal to raise $13,000. We are a little less than halfway there. To date, we've raised around $5,100, and would just encourage all of you, if you believe in dress, believe in our mission, what we are doing for the community and the women in our community, to give you an opportunity to invest in Dress for Success. On the screen, you will see a button where you can click, and that will take you to a page where you can give electronically. So you don't have to worry about trying to find your checkbook or anything like that. And so we would just encourage all of you to, like I said, invest in Dress for Success. And we really appreciate it. And we are looking forward to exceeding our goal with the help of all of you. So thank you in advance for your participation in that area. That's one area that we all can participate. So you may not have been on the panel and you may not have been moderating, but you certainly can be a part of this event by not only your attendance, but by, again, investing in Dress for Success. So our journey continues. This is not the last thing of Women Wardrobe and Wine. And you have another opportunity to celebrate with us next week, October 14th at Top Golf. We still have tickets on sale. They will be available until noon tomorrow. So if you want to come out and enjoy women and wind down, if you will, perhaps play a little golf, we encourage you to purchase a ticket. And that's one thing that's easy to do. If you see the QR code on your screen, you can scan that to further your giving. So at this point, I will turn it back over to Melanie for any closing remarks. And again, thank you so much in advance for your participation in helping us to exceed our goal of $13,000. Melanie?
Arlonda, thank you so much. Everyone, we're a little bit over our time, so I'm not going to keep you. Just want to thank our sponsors, Charles Schwab, PNC Bank, ERC, McDonald and Hopkins, Jones Day, Parker and Hannafin, Accenture, all for supporting our Women Wardrobe and Wine event. And I'm just going to make sure I didn't leave anybody out. But here are all of our sponsors. And again, if you want to join us next week, we're at Top Golf and tickets are on sale until Friday at noon. So thank you, everybody. Have a great rest of your evening. Bye.